Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the You Got the Ron Dude podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm Ron Jammin. I'd love to hear from you. If you're listening on Anchor, you can leave a voice message. Otherwise, leave a comment. Links to my stuff will be in the description, so check those out. And this episode is my review of Clerks III. I actually watched it months ago, and recently I watched part of it again, just jotting down all my notes. And it's interesting. It's very dark, very moody, not really uplifting in any way. And it felt like it could have been longer, like there should have been more to the story, which I'll get into later. But we got a lot to go over, so let's get right into it. Well, I thought bringing back Veronica was a good misdirect, because we thought, are they getting back together? But they just kind of had a one-night stand, and that was it. And I would have liked to have seen them, I don't know, patch things up. We don't really know what happened between them. They broke up, went their separate ways. But obviously at the end, it couldn't happen because of what happens. But it didn't really go anywhere. It was kind of like a cameo, and you're like, okay. And now that I think of it, I mean, there just should have been, despite this being a Kevin Smith movie, there should have been more conversations, more heartfelt moments. I think Veronica, maybe they could have incorporated her, made it sound like she was, visiting him all the time, and they slowly fall in love. But I can understand, I mean, Becky was like the ultimate goal, the ultimate win for Dante, and it's very sad. I wish that Veronica would have spoken at the funeral. Maybe that's a deleted scene. I don't know if they even filmed it. But to bring her back and do so little with her, or at least have a cameo that works a little bit better. But still, it's nice. I mean, they got one last hoorah, if you want to call it that. And there were definitely some pacing issues in this movie, because I wish it was a little bit longer. Like if they had shown Becky's actual death scene, when Dante goes to the bar, because they just cut to him coming back to the quick stop. And it's like, what happened at the bar? So maybe he's at the bar, and then we don't know if he actually saw what happened. We saw him at the hospital when Becky was there. But it's like, maybe, just the story could have shown us what happened to Becky. Even though it's gruesome, you still want to be like, well, she was in one piece. Did she die right away? What was going on? Or just his version of what happened, what he thought happened. And in a recent episode, I talked about my concerns for this movie, and I feel I was right about them with being too meta. Because at the end, they're watching footage from the actual Clerks movie instead of what they filmed. Because I figured they'd slap on some goofy toupees, like oversized clothing or something that didn't really match, because they're like, what the fuck did I wear 30 years ago? Who the fuck knows, dude? Something like that, just something goofy. But seeing the footage from the actual film, it doesn't really match up just because of how much they've aged. Not a lot, obviously, but still, if they had made kind of like a campy version, like even move stuff around the store, because they're like, what was it like 30 years ago? And then they realize, oh, it was the same. But not a huge disappointment. I just thought it was an interesting choice, because they go like over the top and really silly, kind of, not even on purpose, not intentionally. But we watched this kind of goofy version of the original, where it looks goofy. And obviously you have the dialogue, but didn't ruin the movie or anything. I thought it was an interesting choice, but it's just that meta thing. And right before, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie, right before Dante gets his heart attack, I really liked his meltdown towards Randal. I liked that everybody was there watching, and they're just like, holy shit. And it's one of those conversations, it's so sad, it's unfortunate, because it's like, we were never friends. And it doesn't really fit because of how Clerks II went. It's like they realize they need each other. They're best friends. And if they had another falling out, I could understand. I mean, they kind of did with the filmmaking in that, because Randal just wasn't very likable. But still, it's like, now we were never friends. It's like, here we go again. But I felt that in the end, when Randal visits him in the hospital, it's just resolved too quickly, It's like shooting someone, being like, oh, my bad. Like, oh, no problem. It's all good. Happens all the time. But with this, it just wrapped up too quickly. There should have been like a few more beats. And, maybe another half an hour of movie, I think. Give it time to breathe. Because we know they're best friends. But Dante could have just said, you're being a complete asshole. Something like that. Instead of the whole, we're not friends thing. It just didn't fit. Now, it could have worked, like I said. Maybe if there was another story, plot line or something going on. Like where Dante felt betrayed. But with this, it just didn't really hit. And again, just like the pacing issue I talked about before, this was another example of that. And yes, when I first saw the trailer, I'm like, really? Randal gets the heart attack? Even when he has it, he's not like outraged or anything. So I was one of those like, why wouldn't you give it to Dante? And of course I'm like, oh yeah, it could have happened to both of them. I didn't even think of that. That I really liked. And it's sad and it's very shocking. And his last words, I'm not even supposed to be here. And then he croaks pretty much. But that, I really liked that. Because I watched an interview with, maybe it was Jeff and Brian, Dante and Randal. And the interviewer said, like, I would have given the heart attack to Dante. But they were careful not to spoil it. Like, oh, he gets one too, don't worry. But that was very clever. And I wonder, I know the original Clerks III, the original draft, I can't imagine how many different stories they've had over the years, but if he was going to kill off one of them even before he had his heart attack in that. But yeah, very well done, very surprising. Well, unfortunately, Randal, he's just not likable in this movie. You're not really rooting for him as the filmmaker. And it works if he's just obsessed, like he becomes hyper-focused on making the movie. But it just seems like he's in his own head and really arrogant. And it's like for no reason. Usually you have to accomplish something to be like, oh, I can see why that guy's an asshole. I mean, he invented this and that and made a lot of money, so he's just arrogant for that. But with Randal, it just didn't work. And again, back to the heart attack and the conversation they had, the match that they had. It just didn't work. It's resolved too quickly, so it's hard to read Randal in this movie. And you're not really rooting for anybody. So it's not like Jeff forgot how to play him. I mean, it's his character. But there were a few funny moments in that. But overall, I mean, it is a depressing movie. And supposedly the end of the Clerks franchise, the Clerks trilogy. I'm hoping we'll see Randal in, other movies in that. But yeah, yet it's the movie's a good watch, but it's just, you have Clerks, the Foundation, Clerks II, and it's like, oh my gosh, because that was back in like the MySpace heyday. Everything was fun and exciting, and that movie just lifted you up. Like, they reopened the Quick Stop, and Dante gets Becky, and then the third one just punches you right in your gut. You're like, what did I do? The audition scene, it wasn't funny at all. If you know these movies, you've watched them, it's like, I'm not supposed to be here today. I mean, they're just beating that dead horse over and over again. The Jokers were kind of wasted in that. I mean, it was such an opportunity. Because if, like, you haven't seen any of the Clerks movies, you'd be like, why are they all saying this line? And if you have seen the movies, you're like, why are they saying this line again and again? Not even supposed to be here today. And it's like, no, that's Dante's. Like, we don't need to see that. Make him say other stuff, or they go off script, something goofy. I mean, having Affleck and the Jokers and all the other cameos, it just didn't work. Again, it's too meta. Another example of the movie being too short, I don't understand why Smith, he didn't write the rest of it. Like, selling the movie, trying to sell it. It takes place in modern day. Is YouTube around? Because they talk about the video store closing like 10 years ago. So clearly we're in present times. But YouTube, Netflix, something, take it on the road, film festivals. There wasn't much closure on that part. Or is that for a part 4? Or will they reference it in like a different movie like Mallrats 2 or another Jay and Silent Bob? But it just didn't feel complete. Because it's like, well, you made the movie, but how are you distributing it? Are you? Is it going to fall in line with the real story? Like you play it at a theater and there's one guy there and they end up buying it and so forth. Well, Jay and Silent Bob were great in this movie. Reboot, I didn't really care for. Because just like this one, it felt a little too meta at times. Like it was referencing old movies in the same universe. Whereas like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, that one is just so much fun. They're all over the place. So much goofy humor. So much so that it's like, well, they didn't really need a sequel because they couldn't seem to top it. But the characters are great in this because we're not with them the whole movie. And that's why I think these Clerks movies work, because you have a lot of different characters to visit and revisit and all that. And Jay and Silent Bob, see, I don't want to say they're good in small doses, because Strike Back, that's one of the best of the View Askew universe movies. But Reboot was kind of a miss because nothing really hit. It became so dramatic in that. Which works in small doses, but yeah, they were great in this movie. And it just seemed like it really hit in this one. Now, besides Dante eventually getting his heart attack, oh my gosh, that opening. Becky dead. Holy moly. Like I said earlier, Clerks II, it just lifts you up. You know? You raise me up. And then Clerks III just knocks you the fudge out. Punches you in the gut. Kicks you while you're down. It's like, you want a happy ending? No, that's not how life works. So his heart attack, and then learning of Becky in the beginning, immediately I was like, holy shnikes. I didn't even consider that. And I liked how they incorporated her into the movie. But that I was like, oh my gosh. And I mean right after the events of Clerks II. But I was wondering if her death was always like at the intro or revealed later. And I actually have an idea about that, which I'll get to towards the end. It's at the end of my notes. And kind of like a misdirect a couple times, but I'll explain later. But I'm wondering if he moved the death around in the script. But my heart sunk. I mean, that was just, this is going to be rough. Because you think like, wait, we saw her in the trailer, so is that before she died? But then nope. But it's really sweet, her being at the theater at the end with him. And they both, As much as I didn't think the movie was complete, or I didn't truly love it as much as Clerks II, it takes that realistic approach. And I like that because stuff happens. I mean, we've all lost people during the pandemic, and it's one of those things. And of course, like in the movie, drunk drivers taking people, and it's just so sad. But yeah, poor Dante, and him never really moving on from that all these years later. Well, one thing I was curious about, Dante's heart, did he have full blockage? Was he operated on? That's another thing with like the pacing and just more context in that. I don't know if Kevin, because again, it's smart. He gave heart attacks to Randal and Dante, but was like Randal's, obviously that kind of matched Kevin's story. But with Dante, it's like, what happened? I mean, was he just a goner? Was it too late? Any operation? And Elias' speech at the end towards Randal, it didn't really hit. I wonder if it would have worked better if like Veronica or heck, Silent Bob did it. To have that moment to confront him, and it just, it didn't really register. Not that it was out of character or anything, it was well written, but again, I mean, you're just not really rooting for anybody in the movie. It's just so depressing. And not saying it's not good, but it's very dark. And I mean, I'm glad it's different than Clerks II and the first one. Because you could show me a still or even like a one line from one of the movies and I could identify it right away. But with Elias, it should have worked, but he didn't have enough screen time with these guys. So we didn't really get a sense of where they were. Like, are they all friends? Did they just tolerate Elias? And, so I think Silent Bob could have nailed it. Or if they brought back another cameo, another character, so it really hit Randal hard. You know, like what you're doing and how you're behaving and all that. The hockey scene at the beginning of the movie, it's not that the music was too loud, but it's like, were we supposed to hear any of that dialogue? Or the hockey scene, we should have just seen that later on in the movie that they make. Because in the beginning, it doesn't really add anything to it. It's just something else, you know, from the first film. It's kind of like, yeah, we've seen this. And now if somebody showed up and like, hey, I want to take you guys on, let's make this really competitive, I'd be like, oh, that's cool. You know, a couple guys swing by and challenge them. But it's just one of those scenes you could just take out, and it's like, it doesn't matter. Another thing I was kind of curious about, so when they were going to film at movies, we know that Dante, he couldn't handle it. He just left, went to the bar, got drunk. But Randal, he still filmed there. He filmed the scenes basically shooting Clerks and Clerks II. But who is going to play Becky? Because in the movie, we see Dante, you know, he's looking at movies, location. What if an alternate scene, an extended scene, he looks up at the sign, and it's just breaking his heart. You see him starting to tear up. And then he looks down, and there's a girl who looks just like Becky. And just shatters him. Now, what's in the movie already works, but it's kind of like, wait, did they finish filming everything? Because Randal didn't really seem to care or consider. And it's like, well, we'll film all this stuff, but we don't want Dante around for these scenes. But, yeah, I was kind of curious about that because it's already heartbreaking enough. Or maybe he just shows up and they weren't even shooting. The girl was just there, just, you know, like looking around the location, and that he and her meet. But yeah, they just showed footage from the first movie when Randal shows Dante, you know, the movie in the hospital. But it's like, well, what about movies? Like, you shot all that stuff too, right? So Randal's place, I couldn't figure it out because he's in between the old video store and the Quick Stop. But you look at the entrance to his place, and that's a really slim corridor. So his place is in back, and it's more extensive. I couldn't figure that out. It doesn't ruin the movie at all. It doesn't, lose points for that. But I couldn't figure it out. I was like, well, his place is a nice size. But kind of like when somebody broke down the Seinfeld apartment, how the hallway, when you see that, when they're in the hallway, versus in the apartment, you're like, well, it should be angled, I think. Something like that, but just something I wanted to point out. I thought it was interesting. Okay, let's talk some more about characters. Good use of Emma. I don't think anybody wanted her and Dante to patch things up, and it had been so long anyways. And considering what happened in 2, but her character was well used. I wish they would have done more with Veronica in that way, had her contribute more to the plot, but it was still good to see her. Justin Long, his scene was too long. They just kept going and going. It's like they used not all the takes in that, but it's just too much. I don't want to say too much dialogue in a Kevin Smith movie, because I always loved the dialogue. But in this case, it was just one after the other. And it's kind of like, well, we'll try this, we'll try that. And they do. And then it's like, we'll just keep going. So I think they could have cut that down significantly. In Blockchain, that character, that's another one who could have given the speech at the end, maybe just out of the blue. Elias was enough. He didn't need a partner or anything like a Silent Bob. So the sidekick thing, it just didn't work because I like the NFT aspect. But it's like Elias, you have him bounce off of Randal and even Dante. You don't need someone else there. I would have liked to have seen him interact more with Jay and Silent Bob. Just bounce stuff off of them. And another switch I would have done in this movie. Well, I mean, obviously, everybody wanted to give Dante the heart attack, which eventually he got. But I saw Dante directing instead. Because, Dante is based on Kevin Smith. And even though Randal watched a lot of movies, it just seems like everything should have gone to Dante. But I do like the misdirects in the movie, or the surprises like Becky's death, and then Randal and Dante having heart attacks. But with Dante, since Becky was killed by a drunk driver in an accident, he'd be advocating more against drunk driving. And make a movie about that, maybe? Don't go meta and make a movie about working in the store. Because it's just too meta. It doesn't really work. It kind of takes you out of the movie a little bit. But Dante, so let's say he has a heart attack. Let's say at the end they kill off Randal instead. He has a heart attack and dies. So Dante gets a heart attack, gets inspired to make a movie. And he wants to incorporate the store and the video store and all that. But maybe he wants to tell Becky's story. And kind of like Clerks, but just with everything that's happened. And fill us in on the last, 15 years or whatever it was between 2 and 3. Give us all that stuff. The Clerks 3 is about him making the movie, and then we actually see a short film or just the movie that Dante made, really made by Kevin. Have that additional, like a bonus feature, or release it on its own. Or even after Randal has his heart attack, Dante has an idea. Because it's well, I lost the love of my life and didn't even get to meet my child. And then my friend has a heart attack, almost dies. And it's not that the movie didn't work. It's just you watch it and you're like, well, what about this? What about that? Oh, I would have gone this route instead. But I'm curious what you think. And I know this is going to go against what I said, but about it being too meta. But what if you have all these people audition to play Dante and Randal. They're watching everybody. And then they realize, why don't we just do it? Because Randal will be like, are you kidding? None of these cats even sound like me. I can do me. Come on. I think that'd be funny. Like, they go through this hellish audition process and they're watching tapes and stuff of people. Well, now I guess it'd be digital, but you know what I mean. Or heck, Randal, he's still thinking old school, and he's like, yeah, send in VHS tapes for your audition. Imagine trying to get 4K on VHS. That'd be interesting. Have all the lines and fuzz and stuff. But that's another idea I had. So they go through it and they're like, Dante, he picks out who should play them, and then Randal's like, nah, we should do it. Well, outside the View Askew universe, you know, all the Mallrats, Jay and Bob movies and that, and Clerks, of course, I haven't seen Kevin Smith's other movies. Not that I'm not interested in them, but just over the years, I don't really see them anywhere, I don't think. Like, you'd have to buy them, but the point is, this movie was a step up from Reboot, Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, because that movie, I'll have to watch it again and do a review on it, because just nothing really hit. It seemed to rely on the past movies, and because you like seeing cameos in that, of course, but when they're always referencing the past, it's kind of like, you don't have anything new? It was, very sad at the end. I like all the stuff with Jay and his daughter, but it's kind of like, is this a drama, comedy drama? Whereas Strike Back, I mean, that is just like a Dumb and Dumber. It's just so goofy in that. But, yeah, step up from reboots. But I'm hoping, I don't know if he's still doing Mallrats 2, or Mallbrats, the TV show, another Clerks. But yeah, I wasn't disappointed in this movie. It was just one of those you watch and you're like, huh. Because sometimes you watch a movie and you're like, well, I would have done this differently, that differently. And with this one, there was a lot of that. But maybe, I don't know. I'll have to watch Reboot again. Because maybe it's about the same. I'd give them both the same score. And I like the NFT edition, which I mentioned earlier. But for some reason, nothing seemed to go viral from the movie. I think Elias and Blockchain should have kept coming up with new designs in that. And maybe, viewers would be like, oh, that's really cool, and then tweet it out or Instagram it, whatever. But that is interesting. Nothing really caught on. Because they had the NFT kites and stuff, and I don't know if he intended for that stuff to really take off. Or he's just like, I'll just throw it in there, it seems cool. But NFTs, I mean, still in the infancy stage, just like crypto and all that. But we'll see, maybe one day it'll blow up. Well, if there is Clerks 4 or another movie, with Randal as the lead, would that have him shopping around the movie that he shot? And is it in 4K black and whites? What are we talking about? I just want more details, because it could be an adventure, kind of like Randal Strikes Back, where he goes to Hollywood. Maybe he's not even aware of, YouTube. He goes, shops it around in that, all the different streamers and stuff. And then in the end, he's just like, oh, wait, just throw it up on YouTube. Kind of like when they're casting my idea, they go through all these auditions and then they just end up playing the roles themselves. So that could be interesting. Or just include that in the next movie, whatever it is, Mallrats or Jay and Bob, they help them shop it around or something. But I think that'd be cool. Okay, so another idea I had. So at the beginning, we don't reveal that Becky's gone. We don't address her really. We just figure, oh, Dante, another day at work. Here we go. Opens the place up. But before that, we go to the cemetery, and there's a shot of Dante standing over a grave, a tombstone. And the tombstone from behind, so we just see Dante, kind of a wide shot, or maybe a mid shot, looking down and just saying something, not mentioning any names. We assume it's Randal because of the heart attack. So he's like, I miss you so much. I love you. And I wish you were still here. And I wish we had more time. And then later it's revealed it's Becky's grave. Not Randal Graves' grave. And same thing with Randal. At some point we have him standing, kind of the same shot. He's standing, next to a tombstone. And we think it's also for Becky. But then at the end, Dante, we learn that he died from his heart attack. So I think that would add to the, the darkness of this movie. It's a dark comedy. But just it still works. The thing with Becky, it just breaks your heart in the beginning already. But I would have moved that a little bit. And maybe even during Dante's speech, when he breaks down to Randal, he mentions, one drunk driver ruined that all. And they're like, wait, what is he talking about? And it's like, oh, he was standing over Becky's grave. Oh my gosh. Well, that is it for my review of Clerks III. Let me know what you think, what ideas you have for the movie, what you thought of this. Did you like any of the changes I would have made? I may even write some stuff. But thanks for listening. And I'll have links for you to all my stuff in the description where the podcast is available and other stuff. So check that out. And I will give Reboot another watch and review it. Because maybe a second viewing I'll be like, oh no, I really like this. But so I appreciate your time. Be sure to, follow, subscribe, rate, share, like, all that stuff. If you're listening on Anchor, you can leave a voice message. Otherwise, leave a comment elsewhere. And stay tuned for endless episodes. I will see you next time. I'm Ron Jammin, and no time for love, Dr. Jones. That's not a good outro. What else should I say as Randal? Oh, God, dude, come on now. You're going off script. Now you got your notes there. You couldn't have written something clever? Come on. Okay. Let me tell you something, all right? Here's how you end a podcast. You're going to love this.